Hey everyone, welcome back to Manufacturing Hub Live. My name is Dave. This guy up here is Vlad. Super excited to have everyone on. If you're following our friends from Siemens or perhaps Siemens Xcelerator, welcome to Manufacturing Hub for what might be your first time. If you guys are longtime listeners, absolutely thank you and welcome back. A couple of notes. If you guys are new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you have not been here, we love to have a lively, fun conversation every or just about every Wednesday afternoon with other folks working in this space. And we're really happy to bring Martin and Flemming on a conversation that's probably been like a year and a half in the making as Siemens Xcelerator has slowly taken over Siemens and marketplaces have continued to take over our life. If you guys have thoughts or questions or comments for Martin, Flemming, Vlad, or myself, please feel free to go ahead and drop them in the chat. We'll do our very best to answer those questions. And if we don't get to the questions or they're very technical in particular, we will do our best to get back to them after this show and conversation. So as I said, I'm super excited to go welcome Martin and Flemming to the show. We get to talk about Xcelerator, but more so we get to talk about Marketplace. And as Vlad has heard me say probably several dozen times, I've always been enamored with like the thought behind a marketplace from what my brain thinks is a much better first Steve Jobs impersonation of welcome to the iPhone. This is the app marketplace, which is really like the app marketplace, the Apple marketplace, or like the Google Play Store like 10 years ago. I have always thought that this is a fantastic idea, and I would love to go see it in the industrial space. And we have never been closer to paying that off. So having said that, officially, everyone, welcome to Manufacturing Hub. My name is Dave. This guy up here is Vlad. This is Manufacturing Hub, episode 269. Today, we've got Martin and Flemming on from Siemens and Siemens Xcelerator. Guys, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us, Dave.
Martin, Flemming, thank you so much for taking the time. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting conversation. Before we get into it, I would like to obviously get your backgrounds, understand a little bit better how did you get started in our industry, understand a bit of your career, and ultimately tell us about what you are doing today, please. We'll start with Martin.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Pleasure to be here. It's my first episode of the Manufacturing Hub, so I can't wait to have that lively conversation that you promised, Dave and Vlad. I've been with Siemens for about 12 years, came later in my career to Siemens, unlike most middle-aged German white guys that I represent here today. I started actually in the corporate technology, so the headquarters section in a business excellence role. And then I had the opportunity to morph into a more operational consulting role, which is what brought me to the US. And I built an operations consulting team where one of our focus areas was introducing good old-fashioned lean manufacturing practices across the factories, across our Siemens businesses, but also meant that with more and more digital technologies. And in some cases, even, leave the shop floor and transition that into a new business model, generating new business streams. So these were the kind of like the two areas. Fast forward in my current role, I'm the country program manager for Xcelerator. We will talk more about it. It's a big initiative for Siemens. It's really how we want to make our promise real, to connect the real and the digital world by offering the most comprehensive portfolio of solutions. I know that sounds like very much corporate talk. I will give more examples later on. But my role is to help build this as a capability for Siemens, but first and foremost as a capability for our clients, existing and new ones, and a little bit also a mission of democratizing access to technology where Siemens has a lot. We're adding even partners to that mix to make it as simple, as easy, as convenient as possible for clients to find what they need all in one place.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Flemming?
Yeah. So first of all, thanks again for having us here. Flemming Kongsberg. I am the odd Siemens guy out in many different ways. First of all, I live in California, so I don't have a lot of people in my time zone, but we're building it up out here. Second, I've only been here for a little over 2 years. Employed and working directly for the CTO organization out of HQ. which is tasked with building new innovative solution that goes across the Siemens different portfolios. So again, you can see I don't live in a silo. I work across the organization, and I really focus on what our customers need and working backward from that, delivering those solutions. Parallel to that, I run our SMB focus, which is what we'll be talking about, I assume, here later today, and what we're doing to bring Siemens into the small and medium-sized businesses in the US in particular. And why is this actually important to me, and how did I end up here? Well, before I joined Siemens, I spent almost 8 years over with Amazon Web Services, building up partner solutions, partner infrastructures, and as such, managed Siemens as a partner and helped Siemens get listed on the AWS marketplace. So if you want to talk marketplaces, I've been probably employed and working with getting some of the largest companies around the world you can imagine, from both industries and also business applications, infrastructure partners, listed and selling at scale on a large marketplace. In terms of how I got into the industry, now we're going to go really back to, dare I say, 80s and 90s. I actually have my master's degree in total quality management and spent several years in Japan, working with some of the largest companies and technologies around quality management, working with some of the largest industrial manufacturers in Japan on some of those kind of topics. So been in the industry, in and around manufactories and built factories over the years. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here today, and I look forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think there's, again, as I listen more thoroughly to both of your backgrounds, I think there's a lot of conversations we could definitely pursue. I think the goal today was to focus specifically, on Xcelerator, SMBs, and the marketplace. And so I'm not going to spend a ton of time dissecting, the previous companies, because I think it's super interesting to also learn how you're bringing a lot of different expertise before you came into Siemens and what that ultimately means for manufacturers of different scale. But I think Siemens also has such a vast portfolio of products, from, trains all the way to PLCs and industrial software, as well as services, that maybe we'll constrain this for the purposes of the 1 hour. So I want to maybe ask you a higher level question before we get into Xcelerator, and that is, what kind of challenges do you believe the manufacturers are facing today, right? And for now, we'll keep it a little bit broad as we maybe scale it down to small and medium in just a moment. But the manufacturing space in 2026, what are some of the challenges that you discuss with manufacturers?
Do you want me to take that first, Martin?
Yep.
Sure.
So I'm happy to go first. And one of the things that's interesting to me is, like, I specifically focus on some of the small and medium-sized businesses and the challenge that they're facing with. But I actually don't think that they're much different than very large companies are dealing with. I typically see it in like 4 different areas where I think it's important to take a look at that. Number one, we all know that hiring in this industry for people to work on the shop floor and in the manufacturing plants continues to be a challenge, right? We're seeing a generational shift in many of these companies out there, where the owner has now run the business for 30, 40 years, whatever, and now moving on. So first of all, there's a challenge to get leadership in place. But even more importantly, it is hard to get people on the shop floor working with these machinery technologies that are actually producing physical things out there. That is definitely a challenge that I think a lot of them are seeing in both big and small companies together out there in our industry. Second of all, I think we all know that costs are going up, whether it's because of inflation, due to tariffs, supply chain issues. You consistently have to focus on driving costs down in those organizations. And that creates a really, really big challenge, because if you have to do that, you got to remember, you still got to get things out the door every single day. And then you have to suddenly do focusing on areas that might not be something you focused on for the last many years. That's a different challenge. As I mentioned and I'll get to my third challenge here, is we've had companies that have been in operation for 20, 30, 40 years out there. Guess what? The infrastructure they're looking at on their shop floor is a combination of machines that have been bought over years. It is machines that are 20, 30-year-olds, that are machines they bought just a couple of years ago, that have all the bells and whistles of technology. And then on top of that, you put software from ERP systems and open source and cloud on top of all that. So if you want to make changes to all of those things, guess what? It becomes a myriad of challenges you suddenly have to overcome. And that means that sometimes, no, it's too hard. Let's just keep going the way we are. And if I were to mention a fourth challenge here, is, well, the demands that are happening on the manufacturing companies out there are ever in teaching and ever going. If customers want more, they want it faster, they want it cheaper, and more importantly, they want smaller and smaller lot sizes. We heard somebody, one of our leaders told me after a meeting in DC a couple of weeks ago, says, today or until now, you've been living on making mass production, importing in big bulk from overseas. Well, now when you're seeing more and more manufacturing happen locally, well, guess what? You need smaller batches, you need more flexibility, you need higher quality. And as such, maybe every single large customer over the next couple of years will become an SMB because they have to operate at that smaller scale. So to me, those are the 4 challenges that we're seeing, that I'm talking to customers and partners with almost every single day.
Interesting. Martin,
Well,
what are your
Flemming,
thoughts?
you did an excellent job, no surprise, covering the big ones. The only thing I would add, without repeating, is I think fundamentally the challenges in manufacturing today are the same as they were 10, 20, 30 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the new quality coming is that back in the day, it felt and probably was in certain cases that you only had one issue to deal with at a time, and you had a little more time to figure it out. These days, it feels like the perfect storm because everything is happening at the same time. The workforce problematic that Flemming addressed, the huge speed of technology, innovation and adoption expectation, right? While still dealing in a more and more unstable, perceived at least, environment. COVID was a big shock. I remember the just-in-time philosophy that got completely, thrown down after years and years of optimizing to the dot to build back buffers into supply chain based on that experience. So, to me, I think the big question for any manufacturer is how do we find the happy medium that allows us to be resilient enough to adapt and in some cases even predict early enough to stay competitive. Because if we get lost in being overwhelmed or spending too much time trying to fix one issue, you're already behind. And that's kind of like the definition of who will stay atop or will struggle moving forward.
Let me ask both of you a follow-up on that front before I pass the mic to Dave, right? And I'm curious, obviously the listeners are trying to find opportunities and solve some of those challenges for their facilities and organizations, right? And I personally believe one of those moats is, of course, innovation through technology. But I'm curious if you see anything like specific, right? Obviously, like AI is changing that landscape quite a bit. I think that more and more companies are realizing the power of data when you're having these conversations, right? And let's say we put the question of personnel maybe not necessarily to the side, right? But there is that physical constraint, right? You need to find people, but ultimately you can maybe augment that through technology. Like, what are some of the opportunities that you either explain to them or see in the market as you're having some of those discussions?
Do you want to go first this time, Martin, or do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Martin on stage.
Where do I start? There's always opportunity, right? That's the flip side of every problem, issue, and crisis, which is the more positive way to look at it. Definitely, if you look at the capability that technology and technical solutions provide, if you think about automation, if you think about robotics, if you think about now AI, the toolbox became so fascinating. If I compare it to a kid in a toy store, where do you even start? There's so many things. The challenge is really to not get overwhelmed and pick the one that matters to you and make it count, because you can also waste a lot of time playing around literally with these. But that's definitely one area of opportunities. Leveraging the support both on the tool side but also on the skill side that are new and hitting the market with the generational shift, and create something new, better, more fitting for the challenges of our time out of this. I know it sounds a little bit generic, but I think really that is the biggest opportunity in what I see. And then it really looks different from industry to industry, from manufacturer to manufacturer, based on how big they are, where they are in their journey. So this is where the differentiation kicks in. But ultimately, that's kind of like where everybody tries to find the best angle how to tackle it.
Gotcha.
So well said. So let me add on top of that, because look, if you ask any kind of manufacturing companies and a lot of the IDCs and whatever goes out and ask these questions, what is important to you? And, the vast majority of them will say, yeah, we got to look at AI, right? But there's just one problem when you start with AI without having thought about how you want to use it. And that is that unless you have data that you take from your internal operations to add into whatever model and process you're building, you're just going to be the same as everybody else. You're not going to generate any kind of strategic advantage because you're using off data that everybody has access to, right? So if I were to say, if you want to start with AI, which everybody does, well, start it in a business process where specific knowledge isn't the requirement. Start with using AI to generate external material. Start using it to manage your chat bot that interacts with your customers, because that's easy to learn. You connect it to your email systems. But before you start using it on your shop floor and actually optimizing and doing your production, make sure that you collect your data. Make sure that you upload that data and visibility into whatever model you're building, and it doesn't really matter which model you're building, so that the foundation by which you start actually takes your competitive data and understanding of the market into account. So make sure that you figure out how to collect the data, connect the data, look at the data, make it a side project if that's all you want, and then upload that to whatever model you're building, and then build from there on out. If you jump yourself into start using AI on, process optimization, just leveraging my machine is broken, what should I do, and think that'll give you a competitive advantage, you've already lost the race, right? Start figuring out where's your data, how do you get your data out of there, build it into your model, and then start becoming the smartest person in the room. Okay?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great point.
Please,
I would
Martin.
add to that. So it starts with that and being clear about what problem you're trying to solve. That's the step that some people try to forget, because AI is the next shiny thing, right? But it's like grabbing the tool when you don't know what tool you want to use it for. The best tool can't help you. So that's also fundamental insight that hasn't really changed, right?
And I think to add on top of that, absolutely, Martin, right? Because the thing is, if you actually start doing data, you don't need AI to create a Pareto chart of where your quality problems are or where your pipeline is getting stuck somewhere, right? Get that out of that, and then whatever that hits that, this is my biggest problem, start there, figuring it out from there on out, right? So start with data before anything else.
Absolutely. I really like how that all came together. I will say, Flemming, when Vlad had asked you about some of the problems, you gave a very comprehensive list, perhaps a much more comprehensive list of all of the problems that we are experiencing than I had anticipated. But I thought you made a lot of good points when we talk about the problems and we talk about the fundamental shift that manufacturing is experiencing currently right now. And to Martin's point, maybe not different issues than we have for the last generation or two, but certainly more of the issues and faster. And the drive of the high mix, low volume is certainly pushing all of those supply chains, is certainly pushing all of the internal machinery and mechanism and the need and desire to optimize, especially those change orders when we go from one area to another, to go back to, I think it was Martin's earlier lean comments. I will say to our listeners, we had a really good conversation a couple of weeks ago, episode 267 with Ujjwal Kumar, who's the president of Siemens Digital Industry Americas. I think I got that correct. We talked a lot about deglobalization in large part because of the high mix, low volume that we're seeing and the need to go and produce more locally or more regionally. So if you guys are interested in that, please go ahead and check out that conversation. It was a fantastic conversation, to the surprise of probably no one currently here in this conversation. We'll go ahead and drop links to that below if you guys are watching live or on replay or on podcast show notes.
And you just revealed my source of my data on where the things are happening. So thanks for pointing that out. Ujjwal is clearly a leader in this space and the one with the finger on the pulse here. So
absolutely. No, 100%. You in fact mentioned it, Flemming, and I'm like, this is probably where the conversation came from, and I can certainly direct people towards that. There are lots of problems, and I I'm sure we'll get into some of those problems and how those problems can be solved. But before we get into that, I want to talk about a little bit about Xcelerator and Marketplace before we talk about some of those solutions. And Martin, I know Xcelerator is yours. Xcelerator is your baby. You are helping reimagine lots of what we've historically seen as Siemens with the Xcelerator Marketplace. So give us the understanding of why a marketplace, give us the understanding of what Xcelerator is doing and how it's helping to move all of these different groups, internal and external, to Siemens forward, please.
Sure, happy to try, but I can't take all the credit. Xcelerator is much bigger than just me. It's a key strategic initiative really for Siemens. And the official definition is our open digital business platform, right? And what we really try to do is bringing together customers, partners, and technologies in the most simple, easiest to navigate, and also operate, use way that we can imagine. Think of it as kind of like the connective tissue between all the hardware, but more and more also software, obviously, solutions, and data, to Flemming's point, across the whole factory lifecycle, all under one roof. The most visible part, the tangible thing that clients can interact with, is the marketplace, right? So it's an online, accessible website where you find a lot of things. Marketplace is actually just a small component. There's a whole learning and educational part for clients, depending on where they are in their journey, to first educate and learn about a topic, an issue, and what is available, not just from Siemens, but in general, but benefiting from Siemens thought leadership. So you can find that there. There's also embedded a whole community. Siemens has lots of clients. We've been around for a while. We have lots of expertise across many, many industries and verticals. And we have active user communities, clients that use our products that also are on the marketplace, the Xcelerator platform, and exchange best practices. They share recommendations. So it's a huge source of getting into the conversation, and again, educating, but also doing your due diligence, finding out what works, what doesn't work, what is the best way to go. And then yes, it is also the marketplace as an online shop, I would say, where you can see certain offerings. What we're trying to do is to bring the full power of Siemens and our partners. We have more than 600 on the platform right now, to our clients in the form that they don't buy just an individual product, hardware, software, service, whatever it is, and then go to the next place and find out what else do I need, and eventually end up with a full-fledged solution. But we try to bring that on the marketplace and do that work for them, so they really can find everything they need, right? And some of it is, especially if it's software-based, software as a service, available to directly purchase, right? A small subset you can add to cart, pay with your credit card, download, and go. And this is mostly what is geared for small and medium size. Flemming will give you an example and talk more about that, to make the threshold as low as possible, the access as easy as possible to get started. So you don't have to buy a 5-year service ERP integration project. You buy one downloadable, executable file, install it, and go and have the first step. And obviously you can scale and add and grow as you need based on your problems, your budget, whatever it is. So that is the marketplace portion. The stuff that you can buy directly, because we still have solutions that require a little more conversation, customization, integration. You still see, it's what I call the kind of like the shop window. So you find out, you can still learn. And in good old fashioned, there is a contact us button, there is a request for vote, so you're not stuck. You can start a conversation. That's all part of that marketplace, where it's opening a whole different additional communication and interaction channel on top of, quote unquote, just buying stuff to our clients, including our partner network.
Okay. I love that. And Before we get into specifically the SMB side and come to you, Flemming, I wanted to come back to you, Martin, and just kind of dive more into the third party or the partner ecosystem. Because for me, and very candidly, and to probably the surprise of no one, I'm not shocked that Siemens can go put together some of these solutions, right? Siemens is probably, as an organization, the most complete automation vendor that exists in this ecosystem, in this timeline. But the part that impresses me is all of I guess, is the path for the third-party solutions and the desire to go host a bunch of different SME knowledge as part of these third-party solutions. So can you walk us through that a little bit more, please, Martin?
Yeah, you captured it pretty well. So the idea was always to not just build a great store, but build a platform, including an open ecosystem of partners, the communities. We do have a specific developer section as well. So the way we look at the ecosystem is there are like three motions that you can assign to, make it work in terms of the concept in your head. There's the build, there's the service, and there's the sell, right?
Okay.
And partners can be active in one or any combination, and several or all three of them. And this is to acknowledge that there is such a wide expertise that Siemens would like to bring to the comprehensive offering of our curated portfolio. Because as big as we are humble enough to acknowledge that we don't have, the solution for each and every problem out there. But in combination with partners, it makes sense for clients because they might need an integration service. There might be a company that already has an API that is not accessible right now from Siemens, right? And because it is already available through a partner, why should we redevelop and reinvent it? So it's a win-win. In some cases, it might be even service. We're trying to really service and offer everything countrywide, and as much locations that we have, there might be partners. Think of it like a service network. We have car shop. You want to get to the one that is closest to you. So there are a lot of benefits, and we also want to invite the partners to benefit. It's not just transactional, for a Siemens win, but they basically get an additional go-to-market channel. They get that visibility. They're not required to always have a quote-unquote Siemens component in what they're offering. They can sell directly, right? And the beauty of such an ecosystem play is that it makes it hopefully more attractive for everybody because suddenly you have connections, outside Siemens involvement, and that sparks co-creation ideas, that sparks new partnership, and that makes life better for everyone. So partners are really a key component. It's where the power of the networking and the ecosystem really happens. It enlarges the portfolio, the solution portfolio, and it gives much more access to a bigger and brighter source that you can use to address and solve your problems.
So can I jump in just for a second, even though this is Martin's section here? Like, I've got a bit of experience in this area, so I will interrupt for a second, right? I really think you can summarize this up in really two words: why we do this and why we have a marketplace like this, and that's in customer obsession, right? We recognize, as Martin so eloquently pointed out, we might not have the best solution for every single use case or anything challenge or vertical out there. By having an ecosystem that we make available, marketplace that makes it simple to buy, simple to buy, simple to buy, simple to maintain, and simple to grow around, is all about giving the customers the ability to run their business the most optimal way and find where they need, right? And that's where I think the Xcelerator marketplace really shines in bringing that to life and enabling that, because we are customer obsessed. If our customers aren't successful, neither are we. And this is our platform for making that happen.
Let me ask, if I may, also a clarifying question, because I don't want to assume that our entire audience has the same familiarity as Dave and I have, right? Even as external parties. So when you say partners, right, can the end user come in and be a partner on the platform, or is it more for integrators, distributors? Could you paint a picture, I guess, like who is currently in the platform?
So the short answer will be yes. when we say partner, that includes to become a seller on the marketplace. So basically, your company, you can apply. We have a little bit of a vetting process, right? But once you are onboarded and acknowledged as a partner and part of the Xcelerator ecosystem, that allows you to offer your compatible offerings through the marketplace and sell directly. That will be a typical example for that sell motion, right? If you're a service partner, you can also just be a partner, just, meaning that we would feature you for those solutions that require a service component, right? Where Siemens doesn't do the service, but hey, if you're kind of like an Amazon, right? If you're interested in this, you might also want this, or customers that bought this also. So if you buy this solution, here's already a pre-vetted service partner that you could consider, for using it long term. So that will be then a partner, for example, that will be featured there. Not necessarily a seller in a traditional sense, but a solution partner, if you want to say so. And to that end, the current partners that you will find on the platform really cover a broad scope from startups, medium-sized companies, all the way to obviously our previously already existing big partners, big logos, because Xcelerator, like I said, is really the umbrella for all kinds of clients. The ones that we already had, large corporations, all the way to new ones, SMBs. The marketplace as such makes it easier for clients that don't have an established Siemens relation to get in touch. But it's bringing the full power of Siemens plus the partners and sellers that are in the ecosystem to our clients to really deliver the value that they deserve.
Excellent. Understood. Second question, right? So you've mentioned this a little bit. There is obviously an emphasis on the software side, but I'm assuming you can also find out more information, and I'm assuming there's more guides on the hardware as well, right? Because there's obviously a lot of hardware involved in manufacturing. Could you paint us maybe a bigger picture of what one could expect by going to Xcelerator and what is covered within that portfolio?
Yeah, everything is the one-word answer. So absolutely, hardware is part of it. And by the way, we should have mentioned there's, if you want to go and check out and take a look yourself, all you have to do is type www.siemens.com. That's how easy it is. And this will give access to everything I explained earlier, the thought leadership, the educational part. There is a little section called the marketplace, and all the products that are available are featured on what we call an offer detail page. And if it's available for an online transaction, there will be a button, add to cart and checkout. If it's a more integrated solution that requires some more sales interaction, right, then it will be a request for quote or contact us button. So that's how you see the breadth of the portfolio. But absolutely, the hardware is on there, the software is on there. What we really want to enable and add more and more of is these packaged solutions, again, across the Siemens portfolio. So from our smart infrastructure to digital industries, right? Maybe even mobility or Advanta as a service organization, but also with our partners, so that we really have the comprehensive solution together, pre-packaged, if you want to say so.
Perfect. I really like the offering, right? Because as I've mentioned a little bit off stream, I do have a potential client that needs exactly what you're describing, not only on the solution side, but also on the consulting and education side as well, right? They need to train their engineers and get up to speed with some of the solutions they already have on the plant floor, but also how do we modernize, quote unquote, and make things better into the future. So really appreciate that. Dave?
Yeah, no, I love it. As you guys know, and as longtime listeners of the show know, SMB is where I do the vast majority of my work throughout my entire career. And so hearing that and hearing kind of this is the focus and it's a one place to go understand the entirety of the solution. Solution-based sales are always the hardest, but are also the most important to groups that don't have ginormous engineering teams and people who are going to do this once or twice in their career and need a place to go start. So this has been exciting. I would love to go kind of walk through what this looks like in a product and application. And so I want to come to you, Flemming. I know there's an SMB package. I think you guys call them packages. So I know there's an SMB package. Can you maybe walk through what that package is? We can talk about some of the pain points that it helps. And then beyond the package, go talk about what an entire implementation solution would look like, please.
Sure. Absolutely. More than happy to do that. So before we all got started looking at the SMB, we, of course, as I just said, we're customer obsessed. So we started talking to a lot of customers, did a lot of survey through third party, listened to IDC and all that kind of stuff, right? And what we learned as we kind of went through that is that there's a couple of challenges out there. First of all, the biggest challenge, as I mentioned early in my opening pitch here, is that what is really my performance data? What is challenging me out there, right? Other challenges we looked at is things like quality and scheduling and all these fancy things that we're all dealing with right now. But really what we're told is like what also is known as OEE is really what's causing a lot of these companies to go focus on it, right? So the challenge that then gets started with that is that all of that in Siemens and how we talk about that is what's called the industrial edge, right? The ability for us to manage production at the edge, connect to devices, get data, understand what's happening, et cetera, et cetera. But we being traditionally a large enterprise customer, offers that through another one of our marketplaces, the Industrial Edge Marketplace or a hub there. And we give customers hundreds of different solutions that they can go choose from. There you go. There's an Industrial Edge box that, right? And we give them all the ability to pick and choose exactly what they want to do. Mm-hmm. But let's step back to the challenges of an SMB customers. 40% of SMB customers, according to the data we have, does not have an IT department. Right? Mm-hmm. They're dealing with people who's been running things the same way. They might have an engineering team, of course they do, but they don't have an engineering team that can go in and look at 2,000 or hundreds of different offers that they got to stitch together and say, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and I want that. And I go like, that ain't never going to happen. You've lost interest before you even done that, right? So what we, because it's just going to be too hard, right? So what we said is, how about we curate that first set of offerings by taking 10, 12 of those solutions that we actually know will enable you to go in, find your devices, connect your devices, and showcase where your biggest challenge and opportunities are in a dynamic environment. That's step number one. So we curated that. We added in some performance insight, which is dashboard capabilities, a little bit of Mendix if you want to customize things yourself and build some local apps just to, again, we got to cross-sell where we can, right? It is a business after all, right? And then easily connect it. And then we created a tool inside our technology tool that actually takes all these tools and capabilities as treating them as one-offs to actually help you install it in a matter of 30 minutes or less. Now, imagine that as a Siemens enterprise type of a solution. Like usually that would be like 60 hours to even get the first IPC up and running, right? We can basically do it on a local PC in a matter of minutes. And we then said, wait a minute, we have this thing called the Xcelerator Marketplace. Let's sell it through that. Because interestingly enough, SMB customers are much more likely to buy something through a marketplace where they use a credit card to buy than an enterprise, right? And why is that? Well, guess what? If you need to approve something spent in a large enterprise customers, can you imagine the approval chain you have to go through? Yeah, and an SMB customer, the one who typically buys this might be the owner, the CEO, the head of manufacturing, somebody who's like, you know what, let's go do it. So you think, wow, that's interesting. I can go buy this on a marketplace, but we said just like a good TV commercial, but wait, there's more. We also said, you know what, we're going to make it free for the first 3 months, right? So you can actually try it through our marketplace. You click, you buy it. Yeah, you got to give us a credit card because we kind of know who you are. And if you don't turn it off, we need a way to bill you. So yeah, that's how the process works, right? But we give you a 3 months pilot or free try to buy that allows you to go do all these things. So that's the way we saw integrating customer needs, customer solutions that we already have, fit for an enterprise customers, easy to install and easy to buy through our marketplaces. And we've tied all that together with a big bow and a tie on it. And yeah, we're seeing increasing customer acceptance and interest in that.
Okay. I love that. There are several parts that I want to dig into, but I guess we talked about the free 3-month trial. It's a bit more of a tongue twister than I had anticipated. But we talked about the first 3 months are a free trial. Can we say August 2026 what it costs for someone if they want to continue to run it? Because I think that is a shock. Everyone has heard me say in this conversation, I feel like it's a shockingly low price. Is that, can we get like a head nod, yes or no, if we can say it? Okay, perfect.
Getting started with production. Martin alluded to the website. You can go find this on. Go to that website, search for getting started with production optimization. And the shocking low price you'll see there is that when you then actually want to go forward and use that, it's $2,000 a year to manage 3 of your machines and connectivity across all of that, right? And then you can buy upscale from that per machine. You add on there more data points, more alerts, more notification. All comes with a set of packages that you buy on top, and you scale that through the marketplace as well, right? So for $2,000 a year, not a month, per year for 3 machines, you can actually start building up that complete insight that goes back to our first problem. How do I get started with AI? Actually, now I can start pulling data from my machinery, get it installed super easy, just like you're building a Lego model, basically. I'm Danish, so that resonates with me, right? So build it up, and it's affordable. So if you can't afford that, you know what, then you've got bigger fish to fry, right? That's another problem you got to figure out first, right? But we talked to customers and partners, and they said, is that per week, per month? No, that's per year, right? $19.99, that's how to get started, right?
Yeah. The way I like to phrase it is really, you know, a part of the mission of Xcelerator is transitioning from, you know, having a client buy a software project to subscribe to real outcome. And that's really an example of what that does.
And
exactly.
Let me, if I may, ask a question on that front, right? Like, what does that maybe timeline look like? Like I said, I have some thoughts in my head with this potential customer, but ultimately I'm trying to better understand. I'm looking at the website on the side, which we will have posted obviously in the show notes for those who are curious. But it looks like, as you mentioned, Flemming, you can connect to a certain number of machines. Obviously, they need to be, I would assume, on the Siemens ecosystem to pull that data. What does the customer need to do and gets as a result of that, right? You've mentioned OEE metrics. Obviously, again, there's the side note of IT not being perfect. Maybe they get some remote connectivity as a result of setting that up. Like, could you walk us through maybe what do, in your experience, those first like 3 or 6 months of setup look like?
So first of all, let me correct one thing you said. You have to be in the Siemens ecosystem. Of course, we'd like you to be that, but that's a bit real. There's a lot of other vendors in this ecosystem. So the solution we have here allows you different protocols and different connectivity. So you can even connect our competitor products into this platform here to the most extent, right? There might be some extreme things out there. We're not a protocol we might not be familiar with, but Ethernet, IP, PROFINET, all the standard connectivities and PLCs that are out in the market, you can connect them in there as well. So we are not just a Siemens ecosystem play here. We really go on a much broader scale than that, right? So looking at the timeline, right? From the minute you procure or sign up for a free trial, we have had one of our partners test it and set it up in their lab. And from they click install it to my computer to they being set up to start connecting devices was 24 minutes. Okay. So just wrap your head around that, right? You have now a functioning system on a local PC. You don't even need a Siemens expensive IPC. Any kind of Windows enabled type of machinery with some virtualization on it can get you up and running in less than half an hour, right? And then you go into a Lego guidebook that basically says, if you want to do a bottle, we have several examples in there, a bottling plant or whatever it is that you want to do. This is how you then connect to your devices and then configure the dashboard that we provide you to whether it's reliability, whether it's quality, whether it's OEE or any kind of other metric that you change setup times, whatever, based on the tags that you can pull from the machines and the devices you connect to, right? And then you set up, well, here are the bands. Here are the connectivity. If my quality goes above a certain timeline, I want to get a notification. So we provide you a notification capability, either through your phone or through your email to connect to do that. Now, typically, as I said, historically, I think the data we showed, that's about a 60-hour committed effort, typically using a partner to do that. We now, you can go do that in a matter of hours, right? And even better, you don't need that specialized skills. We actually have one of our partners who put a new intern on that had just hired off the street a couple of weeks ago, and they installed it, and he was able to do that, right? So this is really, we're trying to make this as simple and as short term as possible. Now, for most customers, I probably probably, because we are a partner-oriented organization, I would probably work with my typical partner that does my installations, and Siemens partners galore know about the solution by now, for them to help you and make sure that you are operating and setting up all the various quirks and security profiles that you need to do, that we teach you about. But we're talking about a matter of days at the most before you get up and running. For the best, maybe a day or so dedicated with somebody who has the connectivity, and it does not require any kind of downtime in your manufacturing facilities, right? Which is, again, another big benefit.
Very interesting. Appreciate it.
I love this, and let there be known, Vlad, the next time you and I get on, I'm going to put on a 24-minute timer, and we're going to run to see how quickly you, as Vlad, can install it. There is a 24-minute baseline. Chad, if you're listening, I want above or below. If we can get odds on Vlad successfully beating the current 24-minute mark. Awesome. And then Martin has passed us another really good link that we'll go ahead, and thank you for that, Martin. We'll go ahead and throw in the chat, and we'll go ahead and make sure that it makes it to the show notes if you guys want some more information on this. I guess I'd like to kind of go continue that thought and that process of someone is like, yes, I want to do this. And maybe it's that intern. I've seen several interns at various groups download free trials. And shocking how much they can accomplish in a short period of time. And I think it's an amazing way to give them visibility and the value for an organization, especially a smaller organization that doesn't have, a lot of connectivity or a lot of OEE screens or something along those lines is tremendous. Most groups maybe wouldn't believe what value can be seen above that. So Dustin, thank you, Dustin. Dustin is going over. Dustin is going over 24 minutes, Vlad. Appreciates some ribbing from a fellow Canadian to a fellow Canadian there. So thank you, Dustin. Having said that, Flemming, go walk us through what it looks like on the partner side, right? And so, of course, if you're going to go deploy this, and maybe there's some networking, maybe we need IPCs, or maybe we need to provision a server in order to be able to go ahead and run this. Is there maybe a success story using this or using something similar that you can walk us through?
So we got plenty of those, but I think the most important thing is that we are currently working on, I'm not going to say we're in a pilot, we're in a limited release with a number of partners who we're working very closely with, right? So these are companies like AWC, it is Prolim, it is Electromatic who's in there. And the reason we're working with those set of partners is that very often you get to a situation, as you said, yeah, we get the software, but you know what? I need another set of hardware. I might need a PLC that can do these things because I'm just setting it up, right? So the first thing I would do is go check the solution out, see what the features, look at our website. Is this really what you need? Are these the kind of offers that you do? And then go talk to one of our partners, as I just mentioned. They're listed on our website, the ones we have the closest relationships with. Give them a call, right? Have a chat with them saying, hey, have you got any experience installing this with them? And we have several, some of them confidential, so I can't really share names here, right? It is what it is. But have a talk with them and say, how can we set you up to come maybe help us out, set it up, help us with the procurement process if needed. Typically, you won't need that, but it could be there, right? And then set an engagement that helps you kind of manage through some of those bumps you might hit in the road and get up and running, right? And several of our partners are doing that right now. They're working directly with leads that were provided to them, and they're finding their own leads as well and setting it up, right? And if you recall, maybe you were at our Automate session. I'm not sure whether we took you up to our site. We actually have one of our partners who built a cabinet specifically built for this SMB market with a PLC, some security devices, some in and out devices that you can actually now almost pre-install working with them, the software on that device, and you get a hardware box delivered with a solution we're talking pre-installed on that and get it up and running, right? So we're piloting that and we're setting that up, right? So absolutely. So that's the process. You can go buy directly. You can do it yourself if you want to do it. If you have some roadblocks, you can open up a case. You can talk to our community that we've set up around this as well. Or you can talk to one of our partners that I'm sure will be more than happy to help you to get it over the final stages and get you up and running.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and again, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, very interested in finding out more, as I do see an opportunity for one of my potential clients to implement something like this. So I will potentially report. Obviously, we need to keep some of the stuff confidential, but would be looking to report on how the process looks like. As a follow-up, right, and Flemming, you made this point a little bit earlier, which surprised me, right? And that was that there is not a whole lot of difference between the very large enterprise and SMBs. I guess I'm seeing a little bit differently, right? But my experience is a little bit, I would say, like limited from what you're seeing with all of the partners. I'm curious maybe to revisit that point, and how do you see the growth enablement of small and medium-sized companies as they deploy solutions such as this, right? So I guess my angle is more, I would say the transformation is probably a lot less drastic at the enterprise level, although it's still there. But these companies, again, as you mentioned, they don't have connectivity, they don't have good IT, they have a lot of, I would say, at least not necessarily fundamental, right, but still different, slightly technological challenges than large enterprise. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what does the transformation for them look like?
First of all, you're absolutely right. There are, of course, differences, right? I think really one of the biggest differences is the bigger you get, the more customization and specialization and skills do you have within your company to drive change, right? But the question you guys have not asked me yet, and I always keep waiting for that because I'm prepared for this, is how do you define an SMB, right? Is it in terms of revenue? Is it in terms of number of employees? Is it in terms of, how many units you produce, whatever? How do you define that, right? We've actually taken a completely different approach in how we define SMB here, which surprisingly our marketing team actually liked. It blew me away because we really look at an SMB is a customer that do not have the skills and experience to handle complex environment changes and digital transformation. It's the companies that don't have an IT organization. It's the company that hasn't really touched anything digital for a number of years and hasn't really done things. And those companies can be both small in terms of size and large. We were dealing with a company the other day that we're still dealing with that we came in that has like 900 devices over 17 different locations. And I just talked to the partner who's helping us with the introduction there. And he came back to us and said, we have another problem here because 90% of those machines they have on that shop floor are 30 years or older. Zero connectivity, right? And guess what? They're in a space that you do not want failures to happen just in case you head into the airport, you'll use one of those devices later, right? That's the industry we're dealing with here, right? Be very careful in what you figure out there because these large companies, they might have the exact same challenges of lack of connectivity, lack of internet, lack of, kind of networking all, and survive on intrinsic knowledge that has been delivered over years and years of people on that shop floor. That's what I'm saying. Large and small companies, they face sometimes the same challenges. We're focusing on the SMB and the market is really on the ones that know they have to start dealing with digital transformation. Know in order to be competitive, they have to look at their data. Know that in order to go to AI, you have to start looking at the data and collectively, systemically, and use it as you build your own model. That is where I see that there's a difference between them, large and small. It is the skills and the capabilities they have that are driving how they address digital transformation. And that's the area we're focusing on helping with.
I think it's a really interesting definition. I like that definition. As Vlad was talking about enterprises and as Flemming, as you were defining what how we would typically define an SMB enterprise and then redefining it for us. I did a quick Google. So I was doing some work at a fairly large enterprise over the last couple of years who was experiencing all of the same things that you were talking about, Flemming, of the lack of connectivity and all of the machines that were 30 years old. In fact, on several dozen of these machines, we looked at them and we gave them the honest assessment of we could go connect them as it stands on Modbus and Serial. But it would really make much more sense for you guys to upgrade at least the controllers on this to modern controllers and then do the next collect, store, analyze phase for a fraction of the cost. And they're a Fortune 200 organization. And I can list at least a dozen of those facilities that I've had conversations with that are all in the same or perhaps worse. That as you described, Flemming. So I like.
There's another one. If I may jump in here for a second, right? It's much easier to make that decision to go and use cloud capabilities in a smaller company than in a large one, because those smaller ones might not have the restrictive policies that for other reasons larger companies have already put in place, right? So it can be easier sometimes the smaller you are, right? Because you just don't have the people who sit and think.
They typically have less legacy to deal with too, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I would say of of many of the fastest moving organizations that I've worked with in the past 10 years. Many of them are smaller organizations who one person can say yes, and they can go make policy changes and shifts in a much quicker manner than to the point of what it takes to go and go through the enterprise process, as we had discussed before. This has been really awesome. I feel like, Flemming, we could ask you like 10 more hours of questions just on this, but I want to go talk about what else, right? Like, I want to talk about what else on the accelerator side, if only because we are time constrained on the podcast in and of itself. But I want to talk about what else, and I guess probably up to you, Martin. We got you on to talk about Xcelerator, and then Flemming has been filling us in all on these SMB packages, which are very exciting. But what else should we expect from the Xcelerator marketplace? Either things we haven't talked about, or maybe directions that we can look for Xcelerator to continue to move.
Yeah, stay engaged. I mean, Xcelerator is a living thing. We're working on it every day, 24/7, right? And it's only getting better and better. We're adding more portfolio. We're expanding its reach. We are redefining the customer experience, and we're bringing more partners on. So if you checked it last week, check it again, because there will be something new and exciting, right? And it's really designed to be interactive and not just a one-off transactional thing. But it's a part of your everyday solutioning, problem fixing, education, right? Like I said, there's also community on there. So the what's next is big and bright. It's hard to pick just one thing. So my advice would be stay engaged, try it out, and become part of the conversation, right? It's very much interactive. To Flemming's point, we're customer obsessed. We're not doing that because we think that's the best, what we want to do. We are doing that because we want to deliver value for our clients, so we depend on their feedback, on their input. So if you like it, that's great, but come back also with, challenge us, argue with us, say, hey, I was looking for this and I couldn't find it yet. So that, gives us a specific angle to add the next best thing.
Oh, really appreciate that. Thank you. Like I said, super interesting. And good point, Flemming, on making that definition, right? Like, as I think a little bit at some of my customers and interactions, and again, contrary a little bit maybe to Dave, I came from very large enterprise, right? I used to do work for Procter & Gamble and Kraft Heinz. So for me, it's just very large corporate environments. And so for me, the definition maybe remained a little bit ingrained. But as I start having more and more conversations with even larger groups that experience some of those challenges, I need to get better at navigating maybe some of those questions and putting them in a different bucket than I originally anticipated. Despite them being, multi-billion-dollar organization, they may have some similar challenges to the usually, I guess, smaller and medium-sized companies. But yeah, appreciate the definition.
Appreciate the feedback.
Dave, do we have any last, I would say, comments, thoughts, or questions? I know that obviously we can take this in many directions, but what are your thoughts?
Honestly, guys, I love this, and I am excited to, go have Vlad download this and install it and see how it goes. My last install, as Vlad will tell you, was multiples longer than 24 minutes. So we'll let Vlad go and install this and let us know how it goes. And I'm honestly really excited to go continue the conversation once this has made it to a number of clients, and then going to see what other SMB focused packages are. As we had a conversation with Ujwal ahead of the show a couple of weeks ago and at Automate, it really feels like packages like this, marketplaces like this, are the direction that we need to go in order to bring what is historically a lot of very siloed pieces of hardware and software into manufacturers that have one person who at 9 o'clock on Thursday night is frantically Google searching, how do I go do this thing? I've got 20 minutes. Please, someone give me a 20-minute answer for a 4,000-hour problem. And so I'm very excited to hear and follow along on how this goes. But before we let you guys go, I do want to ask you both the last questions that we get to ask everyone. And our longtime listeners of the show will know that the first one is my absolute favorite. We'll come to Martin first on the predict the future question. And Martin, I want to know from you, give me the future of marketplaces in the industrial automation over the course of the next 2 to 3 years. Are they going to explode in popularity? What does that look like?
Yeah, good question. I mean, there is a huge community out there that predict and expect that we are already in that shift where B2B will become more and more an online transaction. And I think that's true in many aspects because there is a shift also in the buying journey, right? That typically you can argue about the exact percentage, but like 60, maybe even 70% into that buying journey, that's when your client actually reaches out the first time to talk to you or interact. Everything else in terms of educating, thinking about it, finding a solution happened already before. And where did it happen? Online. Marketplace is an online answer to that. So I think the way forward will be make it even simpler, even easier. The technology is there, chatbots, AI. You don't need to know, the structure, the product portfolio, the catalog of the vendor you're looking at. You just go and ask a question, which is, by the way, really much, very much also what we see, in terms of industrial AI. We started Xcelerator as a offering for digital transformation. We're adding it and transforming it further into the launchpad for industrial AI, which very much is that kind of interaction. You don't program a machine, you just talk to the machine, right? And then you figure it out as an operator how to optimize, how to run it more efficiently. So that's what I see where Xcelerator marketplace will evolve further into over the next couple of years.
Okay. I love that. I'm a little terrified of the last part, as most people will have heard me say, when it comes to operators going and optimizing things with AI on the plant floor as the process is running. But call me old-fashioned, guys. Flemming, I want to ask you the same question, predict the future, but maybe talk more about the SMB market space. Do you imagine that we're going to have a explosion of, yes, this is the answer we've been looking for? How do you imagine that looks over the course of the next few years?
I think the explosion will definitely be with AI. Let's get real, right? Yeah, I know you're as scared as I am, and that's why we've invented the terms. Somebody much smarter than me have invented the terms called guardrails, right? That says you can do this, but you can't do that, right? I think the real innovation I think you're seeing is when are problems going to get solved in the manufacturing process you have today. And I should also, for the audience, mention that while we have been talking about what we're doing in terms of packages and simplification in the automation space, we actually have a very similar solution out called getting started with product design. Because guess what? The quality problems and the productivity issues we have actually start when you design a product, right? Then you start building it, and then you start setting up your plant, and then you start producing it. All of those three things and elements from product design, realization, and optimization is actually what we're trying to solve today. And all of these things then get more and more combined, and they're going to be supported by partners. They're going to be supported with partner solutions, and they're going to be, last but not least, of course, supported by AI. So now if you take that AI revolution on top of all of this, yes, we can use AI to fix the problem, fix your scheduling, whatever. But the real things actually happen at the product design stage. And that's where I think you're seeing a huge evolution from taking the AI capability to build and design new products. And then the learning that you do from that is now going to be sitting where you do the manufacturing. So imagine when you open up a box that arrives at your port, and that opening in the box realizes that there's maybe not 10 devices in the box, there's only 9, and one of them is defect. You do not, in 5 years, need people to fix that problem. You will automatically have a new order placed for the missing part, go back to the design center to figure out why was this product misdesigned and misconfigured, and how do you reschedule that thing downstream so that your manufacturing process doesn't sit and wait for that 10th missing part of that device part to be fixed. That is where we're going, and the Xcelerator marketplace is going to be the place to get all of those solutions and deliver that, whether it's a Siemens solution, a partner enabled solution. That is where we're going, and that's why this is a fascinating space to be a part of these days.
Okay. I like it. I would love if we could remove at least Dave as the human in the loop of large portions of those processes. If only because those are some of the worst parts of any job that I've ever had to do. When it comes to that on all ends of we're missing a part, also they're missing a part, also how do we prevent these missing parts from happening? So absolutely fantastic. I appreciate it, Flemming. Martin, we want to come back to you and ask you for some career advice. So if someone is early to mid-career, probably in the automation or manufacturing space, if they're listening to this, what is the best piece of career advice you have for them?
Don't be scared. That will be my first advice. I do believe AI is here to stay, and it will change a lot of things. I'm not in the camp, where I'm full on the AI train and AI will take over. I think the best career advice right now is actually focus on that transition space. There's a ton of knowledge. Flemming gave the example where traditionally shop floor has been run and managed by people that have the intrinsic knowledge, right? And then there is AI. It will take years to really make that transition, and you need people that are really capable of understanding how things work before AI can be a complementary addition and a support. So understand enough about AI to be in a position where you understand how to use it, but that requires that you still have the good old-fashioned skills, right? That goes for manufacturing, that goes for other trades. So if you can manage to combine those two and help with that transition, I think then you're in the sweet spot of having more demand than you can respond to in terms of where your services are required in many, many different areas over the next couple of years.
Okay. I love that. Hard one to follow, but you've impressed us with all of your answers so far today, Flemming. Same question to you. If someone is early to mid-career, what is the best career advice you have for them?
I got an advice early on that I've actually never had a problem meeting up to, and is don't ever walk into a room thinking you're the smartest person in that room. Always be the second dumbest, right? You don't want to be the real one, but try to be the second dumbest person in the room, and then don't be afraid of asking questions, right? Ask any kind of question that comes up. I guarantee you 9 out of 10 times you're asking a question that somebody else wished that they had asked and they don't know the answer to. And the cool thing about the tools we now have available is that use the tools to figure out what questions to ask, right? Be the HR person who sits in the back of the room, listens to software-defined automation, having absolutely no clue what that is. And by the end of the meeting, you define and develop the solution using Claude Code to deliver the solution in an hour and a half, while the executives have debated whether we should go path A or path B. Be that person, right? Be the person that is not afraid to ask the questions, not afraid to experiment, and get your hands on as many tools as possible and figure out what works for you. And then just be that person that asks the questions and learns every single day.
I love that. Both absolutely fantastic pieces of advice. Fantastic pieces of advice all the way around. Thank you guys for that.
If you have more questions, Flemming needs to go first next because, that just throw me under the bus every time. Great.
Well, I was in fact going
Never
to
would
come
I
to
do such a
Flemming.
thing, Martin.
I was in fact going to come to Flemming. Hopefully, he won't drive the bus over you as he's answering the question this time. But I know you've got a book recommendation for us today, Flemming. What is it, please?
I will, by the way, just before I answer the next question here, and I will give you a book recommendation. I saw these questions in advance. You might ask me these questions, and I asked a lady on my team called Audrey, what kind of advice should I give her? And she gave me what I just said. So I stole this from somebody much smarter than me. Back to my question, be the second smartest person in the room. Audrey does need some credit here. This is what she said to me. Okay, in terms of books, I actually have it sitting here next to me, right? Because I'm both a history buff and also a technology buff. And if you haven't seen this book yet, it's called Nexus, right? By Yuval Noah Harari. It's actually the book that connects everything from we were writing things on a stone tablet to now using AI. I've just started about a week and a half ago. So as you can see, there's a couple of pages to go here, right? But to me, that's just fascinating about how do we go from not being able to communicate to now being able to sit and have a conversation with a philosopher at your desk using your phone with somebody who died millenniums ago to understand how they were thinking about things. This book tells you the answers to some of those questions. And to me, back to my questions, let's start asking questions. And this book definitely asks questions that I definitely hadn't thought about before.
Okay.
Very
I
interesting.
love that. Yeah, that's a very deep answer. Thank you for that, Fleming. Hopefully, Martin, you've also got a good book recommendation when it comes up. Fleming did not set a low bar, but what do you have for us
He
today?
never does. He never does. Well, I think I have a good one because I like it, right? And
Good.
you know, my day job being leading a digital transformation activity, I didn't bring the hard copy, but I have the digital version here on my Kindle. The book is called Range: Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World. I found that fascinating.
Okay.
Ignore that the last name of the author is Epstein. That's just confusing. His first name is David. But I think he makes a really interesting point, because traditionally specializing is how we build everything, right? And that was always an advantage. We talked a little bit earlier about how the world changes. Everything is happening at once and it's faster, which creates more uncertainty. And there is some compelling, not just anecdotal evidence, but scientific studies that if you don't specialize too much, if you actually change different areas, try out things, so kind of like a more generalist approach, that might be a better way to prepare yourself for dealing with this kind of uncertainty and become more resilient, because you combine more experience. The more specialized you are, the more perfect you get for one very narrow set of conditions. But if the conditions are, you know, volatile and change, then it's good to have more in your toolbox. And I think that's also something that, especially going back to that career question, this generation has to figure out. Specialization still has its value, but it's going back to finding that happy balance. And because things change so fast, maybe it's not, you know, the way to plan a 30, 40-year career just in AI, but maybe, you know, do a trade, learn something more physical, and then combine those two. That gives you just more options. So the book will explain more proficiently, you know, why that might work. But I found that thought very interesting and a good asset to work on if that is something that resonates with you.
That's super interesting, right? So I am obviously following all sorts of different industries and verticals. I would generally comment that consulting in a general sense has been affected by AI. But obviously, I'm curious to learn more what points the author is making in the book. So I've added both of them to my Amazon cart and looking forward to it. So really appreciate the suggestions.
Hey, in the
Absolutely.
manufacturing world, just think IT and OT.
Yeah.
You don't even have to go outside manufacturing, you know, to have universes clash. But yeah,
Martin, that's a whole other, like, I've spent my entire career arguing the IT and OT convergence, and I don't know what I'm not gonna go and discuss that, you know, right now. But there's a lot of challenges
That's for our
there.
next
There's a
podcast,
lot
right? You know, let's
yes,
do that.
that's
Yeah.
a whole. That's a 3-hour, if not more, conversation. But
Well,
yes,
you
I
know, Vlad,
definitely know
A
exactly.
short
only have
conversation.
24 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vlad's going to monologue the ITOT convergence issue as he is uploading the software into the
Yes.
Siemens IPC.
Awesome.
But no, I've got many opinions on that side. But let me, I guess, move us to the fourth question, right? And this is one of my favorites, right? Because I think everyone's trying to understand where AI and the industry is ultimately going. But the way I would frame that question is a little bit simpler, right? So imagine for a moment that I'm an entrepreneur in residence working under either one of you, I guess, like in order. What kind of ideas, products would you have me work on? Martin?
Thank you for taking Martin
So-
first, because I'm going to have to think about that. Inspire
Well, I'm
me,
curious.
Martin.
Well,
Where do you think, I guess, like,
that's
in
a really good
rephrasing,
one. I think if we,
Yeah.
we stay with the, you know, let's stay with the AI thing for now. The most recent shift that we saw is from transactional AI, where basically gave better and faster answers compared to a Google search, to where we now have agents, right, that are kind of like autonomously working. And a big thing for every company, organization, enterprise to figure out is, how do we orchestrate agents, and how do we govern it, and how do we organize the governance? Think about liability, right? Agents mean they're not just coming back with an answer to you, they actually take action, and you have to define at what point the human will be still in the loop, say yes or no, but also what happens if whatever action the AI decided, the agent decided to do, caused an error or an injury, or even worse. So I think the idea to work on is, imagine how that play, the orchestration of agentic AI needs to look like. To come back to what Flemming said, what are the guardrails? What are the use cases? What data do we need? So start wrapping your head around that concept to explore where is it useful and where are the boundaries.
Very interesting. I appreciate that. I think that's a really good point. And I think maybe even industry specific, right? Because I think there's going to be general solutions, but then does that apply to manufacturing and the industrial space is a big question on my mind, as you described it as well, right? There's a lot of different nuances.
Yes. And I think accountability is what I'm trying to describe. Where does it start? Where does it end once we cross that line?
Yeah. So I don't have any nearly as smart as answer as Martin just gave there. I think what I would focus on for somebody who come in as a startup there is, as I mentioned before, there is a generation change happening in small and medium-sized companies where leaders are going out, new leaders are coming in. I would focus on building tools and capabilities using AI that will attract a younger generation to go into this industry. Because at the end of the day, I can't remember who said it earlier on, you got to have something, a job now that requires skill and a set of capabilities, and potentially with physical environment out there. Somebody once recommended, I can't remember who it was, become a plumber if you want a job that lasts for a lifetime in this day and age, right? I'm not sure that's the recommendation I would give, but build a solution that allows the younger generation to be attracted to this industry, because we cannot replace people in the industry here. Just try to challenge your AI engine something when you get an answer you don't agree with, and what you get back, oh, sorry, yeah, I didn't know that. We will be in that world for another period of time. It will definitely get smaller and smaller, but I ask questions every day and I have better knowledge than the AI, and I challenge it and it goes, yeah, I missed that part. That is the experience of people who has been in the industry or in a job for 20, 30 years, or have an interest in an area that they can push back and understand that. We will not be in an area that's fully responsible. So I would really have them focus on, how do you take that and capture that generational knowledge and pass it on as fast as absolutely possible, and then give the tools to those younger and newer employees that comes into our industry to be that smarter than the AI engine. And how do you do that? I don't have the answer to that, but that's something we got to figure out to close that gap as soon as absolutely possible, or we'll be in a world of hurt going forward.
Really interesting. I genuinely like that perspective. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I think fantastic answers all the way around. I think absolutely fantastic answers all the way around. Somehow we have already made it to the end of our show and our conversation. So Martin, Flemming, thank you guys so much. Last question, we'll throw it out to whomever wants to answer, is for our listeners, how can they help? I'm sure we would love people to go ahead and download some Siemens Xcelerator packages and the packages that we have, if it helps them on the SMB side. But basically, your open platform or platforms to go ask our listeners anything they can do to help.
Flemming, why don't you go first?
I thought we needed a question from the audience. Like, look, I would say go ask the questions and challenge us, right? Tell us how we can become better at meeting your needs and your opportunities, right? Tell us what challenges you have. Be communicating. We have actually community channels out there. There's a lot of Reddit channels where we were on just the other day. We had an Ask You Anything kind of a session out there, right? Challenges is Siemens. How does Siemens become an SMB focused company? It's not what we're known for, but we want to get there. We want to help you things. We have the technology, we have the insights, and we have the ability to scale you, right? Challenges, go out there, ask us questions. Don't be afraid. We're here to help. We're here to really help drive a transformation in the industry better than anybody's ever done before. So we're here to help.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're a plant manager, operations leader, go check out the marketplace, right? Probe it, ask a question, challenge us, or reach out. Tell us what we still need to add, what we need to improve. If you're an independent, software provider, developer, vendor, join the community, join the conversation, right? And we really love to hear from you. We are customer obsessed, but that only works if we actually, have customers to be obsessed with as a counterpart in that fun interaction. So.
As Karim, who is one of our audience here, said he needs training for PLCs. If you're not finding it on the Siemens website what you need in order to do that, yeah, we've got a problem, right? So just keep those type of questions coming, right? We're gonna help.
Hey, Karim, if you're still listening, check out Eigen Engineering Agent. That's a new product, AI-based. So that will actually allow you already with very little programming knowledge, like you talk to Claude, like you talk to JetGPT, to tell what you want your PLC to be configured for and how to do it. Eigen Engineering Agent, it's on the Xcelerator Marketplace.
This has been fantastic. Martin, Flemming, thank you guys so much for spending some time on this Wednesday afternoon with us. If you guys are watching live, or if our listeners are listening into podcast format, if you guys are watching live or listening after, especially on LinkedIn, please make sure that you're connected with Martin and Flemming. They are tagged across all of our posts, and they are tagged on the event. If you guys are not, please feel free to go ahead and follow the links and go connect with those guys on LinkedIn or anywhere else that you would like to. And while you're doing that, make sure you're following Manufacturing Hub as well as Vlad and myself. Thank you to Siemens for continuing to sponsor these episodes in the Manufacturing Hub facility. If you guys have made it this far on podcast or YouTube format, you're absolutely awesome. Please hit the thumbs up and rate us 5 stars and follow along and subscribe and all of those other good things. When I ask the questions, Vlad releases the episodes and more of you listen, which is absolutely fantastic. One last note. For our listeners, next week we're rolling into a systems integrator theme and like a systems integrator, how to build a business theme. So we're very excited for those next episodes. Until next time.